Hello, welcome back everybody. I've been gone for about a week now. I had a lovely little vacation, but over that vacation I've read so many comic books that at this point I'm starting to get a little overwhelmed trying to remember all these things. So we're going to try and knock out a couple videos and I'm going to try and tell you some stories. Now, one of the best ones that I've read over this elapse of time is Joker, the Killer Smile by Jeff Lemire and Andrea Sorrentino. Now, both of these work on Gideon Falls, a comic that I have not yet read, but does have a really wide viewer base. And I gotta say, Jeff Lemire, I'm starting to realize, is probably one of my favorite writers at this point. He's very good at psychological stories. He's very good at writing the nitty-gritty stuff that I'm always talking about. I've just come to realize that this man is just such a fantastic writer. He wrote this, he wrote the new Swamp Thing Green Hell that's been coming out, and just plenty other ones. The only one I can say I didn't really care for was The Passageway, which go watch that video. It actually turned out to be quite funny. No, mama, I don't want to go in the hole. And he's like, you don't have to. You don't have to jump in the hole. And he's like, I have to jump in the hole. And what does he do? He fucking plummets himself into the hole. But yes, everybody, Joker, the Killer Smile. I'm back to Batman comics. I could not stay away. I just had to get my hands on them because they're always so good. And when you see what I have next, the amount of different Batman crossovers, you're like, man, this guy's really into Batman. And I'm really not, but he's just got so many good stories that I feel utterly compelled to read them. I have to, alright? Now this one centers mostly on the Joker himself. He's back at Arkham Asylum. When are they just gonna put this guy in a pit of dirt in the ground and just be done with this, alright? There's no saving this guy. But where it all starts is Joker's out in the streets. You see all these balloons rising up from the sky, and there's kids and there's parents and they're all having a good time. And Joker's kind of talking about how all he's ever wanted was beauty. He's just wanted to give people laughter, happiness, something they've never seen before. He's a bit of a performance artist, he would call himself. And suddenly, these balloons, they go pop, and there's all this toxic gas, alright? Who would have thought Joker would have brought his classic toxic gas back into the mix? And basically, he just kills hundreds of people in the streets once again, alright? Everybody's laying dead. They have the classic Joker smile. He's done this to fish, to people, to bears, basically anything you could possibly think, and it's just getting a little bit ridiculous, alright? Stop throwing this motherfucker back into Arkham Asylum and just be done with him, alright? Get the Killing Joke going and kill him. Just do it, alright? But at the same time, we wouldn't have all these great stories. But yes, this is what in fact lands him back into the hands of Arkham himself. And now we are going to be dealing with a psychiatrist named Ben throughout this. He's actually been working on Joker for the past week. He wants 2 more weeks to try and get through to this man, alright? He thinks he's on the verge of cracking the code of the Joker, and he wants to use this kind of as a stencil for everybody else in Arkham. He says, imagine, only imagine if we could crack this man's mind, what we could do with everybody else, what we could do for the people. And throughout the story, you're just gonna get a gist that the Joker is just the ultimate manipulator. He is a man that can make you think anything, and there's a lot of confusing bits in the story, a lot of things that I read this thing 3 times over, and I still couldn't figure out how he did exactly what he did to this man. But after the balloon incident, he is thrown back in Arkham. He's kind of sitting here with this man, and I gotta say, I really do like the illustration of what Joker looks like in this. He looks a little bit less like a fuckboy like he did in the Harley Quinn book, which I've yet to do a video on that I'll get around to, but that one was a little fanficky if you ask me. He's a lot more real. He's got the short cropped hair, his face is very bruised up, and he just kind of comes off more across as a real looking person, just with the white getup, the green hair, all of this. But they're sitting together. And this Dr. Ben kind of tells me, no, I can't ever tell when you're just telling a story or when you're telling the truth, and Joker just tells him, that's gonna be a bit of an issue because that's just about all that I do. And the Joker's wondering, what do you want? You're just here to diagnose me. And Ben suddenly says, no, I'm here to cure you. Imagine, if I could cure you, imagine all the good we can do. Why? Don't you want that? Don't you want to be a sane man once again? And the Joker just kind of laughs in his face and he says, okay, that is a good one, Dr. Ben. You are a funny shit. I will give you that. And the Joker goes on to say, what would it do for all the hundreds of people that I've slaughtered? Would it make their families any happier? Would anybody really exactly trust me again? Could they ever? And what would actually be the point? I've already done all these heinous crimes, and I basically am just set in my ways. And eventually, Joker is telling Mr. Ben, this is all just for his ego. He's seen countless psychiatrists come through, and he knows that they just want to get the final story, alright? They want to be the man that cured insanity, and they don't really care about him. And then you cut to the next page, and Dr. Ben is talking to the director, Dr. Hutchins, and she kind of runs this whole show. She's the one allowing him to do all this. And there's some parts in this that I really did enjoy. I don't know if Jeff Lemire added this because he is doing the new Swamp Thing, but there's a point where she is actually talking about Dr. Woodrow. Now, if you watch the Swamp Thing video, you'll know who that is. He is the Floronic Man. He's basically made out of plants, but she's telling him this joke. Hey, did you hear what Woodrow said to the guards last night? And Dr. Ben says, no. And she says, nothing. He's a fucking vegetable. And when I seen that, it made me so happy seeing this little crossover to Swamp Thing. I guess Dr. Woodrow's been in many other comics. It just made me realize, once again, that the more comics you read, the better other ones get, the more references you're going to understand. But anyways, Dr. Ben wants 2 more weeks. He says, I know I can crack this, just give me a little more time. And Dr. Hutchins denies him this. She says, I've already lost too many psychiatrists to this crazy son of a bitch, and I need you to stay alive. You have 2 more weeks, and then you are out of here back into the safety of the normal crazies. And he's mad about this, but he does accept this, and he eventually just ends up going home to a sweet, luxurious family. They're all sitting there on the couch, they're about to have dinner and all these nice things. They're just kind of talking, and eventually he wants to read his son a little story, alright? A little story to go to bed. And you get this awesome, this is going to be through here, alright? Part of this book is kind of like a children's book with a bad twist. It's almost a Happy Tree Friends deal, but with an actual story to it. And I really did enjoy this. I gotta say, the artwork by Andrea Sorrentino was very good. It kind of reminds me of like a postcard, like a good child's iteration. It's just very kind of simple, it's very realistic, and I think it's done really well, especially when it comes to this children book part. And this is all going, once upon a very long time ago, there was a happy, happy place in a happy, happy forest. And wouldn't you know it, this place was even called Happyville. Oh, and Happyville was the happiest place there ever was, and everybody in Happyville knew each other, and they were the very best of friends. But all that was about to change. You see, on the last Saturday of the very last week in Happyville, a new friend came to town. He called himself Mr. Smiles, and boy, oh boy, was he a character. Mr. Smiles carried a strange thing in his hand, and all the curious critters of Happyville gathered around to see what it was. Mr. Smiles was more than happy to give a demonstration of his amazing contraption. Step right up, he declared as he pulled the starting cord, and the rumble of the device's small engine, the smell of diesel fumes filling the spring air. And now, this is very lovely, but Ben's kind of like, what's going on here? This man has a chainsaw on a child's book, and he says, this is kind of a weird book, and his kid's kind of mad, you know. He already promised his child he's going to read this entire book to him, and he says, Daddy, read me this goddamn book, you liar, you absolute liar. And he says, whoa, child, whoa, Simeon, I believe his name is, I'm pretty sure it's Simeon. And eventually it does continue, but he looks at this page, and he looks ahead, and all of a sudden you see this chainsaw blade revving up with happiness. And then you just see these dead animals' head on the ground, these lovely child's book characters, and that is where I'm saying the Happy Tree Friends deal comes into play. And he quick shuts it, and he's like, Jesus, this is a fucked up book. Where did you get this? And the kid kind of says, you know, you gave me this, and this is going to be a running theme throughout this book, okay, is how everybody's kind of seen this Mr. Smiles character. And I gotta tell you, there's a twist at the end of this that really confused me, but now I'm just taking all these hardcovers, all these issues, all these collections of issues as just their own personal stories, and that none of it is actually canon with itself. But he basically tells his son, I'm not gonna read this, alright? You need to be a good boy and just go to sleep. And his son does so. He goes back to his room, and he's hanging out with his wife in bed, and she's kind of getting irritable. He was about to show her this book, but she starts saying, you know, I can tell something's bothering you. You've been locked in this tiny room with the Joker himself, and it's just wrong. No man should ever have to sit with that gentleman, alright? He's evil, he's putrid, he is just an absolute scumbag. And he says, don't worry, I got this all under control. I'll be gone in 2 weeks. That's all they're gonna give me. 2 weeks, and I'll be back to the residentials, dealing with the normal crazies. And they're very happy. They end up going to bed, and he suddenly wakes up in the middle of the night. And this is where the artwork kind of changes, alright? You see this balloon. Then you see this balloon popping, and Ben wakes up, alright? He walks down, he's wondering what the hell is going on. He can hear the scritch going on. He's walking down to the basement. and this noise just keeps on happening, and he kind of calls out, who's down here? What is happening? And suddenly the lights flip on, and it's his wife, and she kind of tells him, what are you doing down here? And he says, nothing, honey, I'm just kind of checking some papers down in the basement, just crossing a few T's, dotting a few I's, and just getting some work done. But what you'll notice is that this pink kind of aura is encircling him while this is going on. Now this is going to tie into later along with this balloon. It is the only explanation I could possibly think that a Joker has affected this man outside, even though he's locked in a padded cell behind a glass wall, behind a steel door. And it's just very confusing how any of this could have even happened in the first place. But what do you know? You get this next page and you actually get to see the Joker fish. Now I can't remember what book this is from. I know you get to see them in Batman and the Three Jokers, which is another one that I have yet to do a video on. One of the first two comics that actually got that and The Boys, and it was also very good, but that is not the point. Him and Joker are kind of talking about this fish, and he says, this would have been what, 8 years ago, the fish? And the Joker says, yeah, that was a good one. The look on those people's faces as you see these people kind of floating in these terrifying fish, alright? I don't know why this gas does that to them. For these people, he obviously has multiple different types of gases, because also in the Three Jokers, he does use this on a bunch of different people trying to create the ultimate Joker. So just a lot of different things going on in this thing. A lot of different lore pieces going on from different books, and it helps a lot if you've read a good bit of different Batman stories. And Ben kind of says, that was almost a performance piece for you, wasn't it? And Joker says, yeah, almost. And they go into this conversation, which I very much enjoyed. Dr. Ben is talking to him, and he goes, you obviously have some kind of background in chemistry. Did you go to college for that? Is that how your face got to be this way? And Joker basically tells me, you don't want to know my origin story. He says, oh, you want to play the secret origin game? I warn you, I'm really good at that one. I never lose. You want to know where I came from, Dr. Ben? And he says, sure. And he starts going on this crazy little rant. He says, once upon a very long time ago, there was a happy, happy place and a happy, happy forest. And wouldn't you just know, this place was even called Happyville. And Ben kind of looks at him and he's like, excuse the fuck out of me? Where did you hear that? But no, he storms out of the room. He's terrified. He just read this in a child's book and he's kind of wondering, what is the crossover? How does the Joker even know about this? And Joker's just kind of sitting in the background here, just laughing his head off, and he runs into the bathroom and he sees Mr. Smiley's face on this broken mirror. He actually punches it and he's like watching his face off, and suddenly he's starting to see all these delusions. Alright, you see the Joker's teeth right here with Ben kind of going through his actions. The door to the Joker's cell is all bloody, and he starts telling the rest of the little story that Ben never got to finish in the story. Then one day, once brave little creature worked up the courage to go to Mr. Smiley's house and knock on the door. When Mr. Smiles answered, the little critter asked him, why did you do that, Mr. Smiles? Why did you hurt all those nice animals? Mr. Smiles thought about this for a very long time. And then he said, well, why don't you come inside and I'll tell you. And suddenly he opens this bathroom door, Ben does, and he sees one of the directors sitting in here all bloodied up with the Joker smile on his face with the ha 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 ha. I can do a way better maniacal laugh like that, I assure you. I'm just a little bit nervous. But he sees that on the wall itself, and this man's just dead. Alright, he's dead, and he freaks out, and suddenly he snaps out of it, and this man's just kind of sitting on the toilet. And he's like, what the hell, man? Alright, I was taking a healthy, girthy dirt, or whatever you want to call it. And he says, I'm sorry. And he kind of sits down on the ground, and the Happyville story finishes. The little fellow knew it was a trick. If I come into your house, you'll just hurt me too. And Mr. Smile said, you're goddamn right I will. But won't you come in anyway? And then you see Joker writing Mr. Smile on his padded walls. I don't know who gave this man colored pencils. I don't know why they would give him anything at this point. It seems like no matter what it is, if you gave him a half-cracked peanut, a shell, he'd probably be able to use that to either bribe his way out, grow some fucking crazy tree with Poison Ivy's help. Just any way to get out of the cell. This man is an absolute genius. The best Houdini we've ever seen in years. But it shows him drawing all this, and the story continues. He says, the animal paused on the threshold of Mr. Smiley's door, uncertain, and then he took one step forward. Mr. Smile has been hiding a big old knife behind his back, and he proceeds to stab and stab and stab. As the animal lay there dying on the floor, Mr. Smiles asked, "You knew that would happen. Why on earth did you come in?" And with his dying breath, the poor little creature responded, "Because I needed to know how it feels." And that is the end of the first book in this. And I gotta say, right off the bat, this thing is very psychological, very interesting story. I've been reading the description for this book itself for like the past 2 weeks, and I just had to have it, alright? I knew this was gonna be my next Batman read, and I'm extremely glad that I got it, especially for a nice little vacation trip. It made for a great read on a long-ass car ride. I gotta say, I plowed through this book, like I said, 2 or 3 times. I thought it was that good. Now, while it is very confusing, just the premise of it and the ending of it was very, very worth it. But on book 2, you see Ben kind of racing home, and then you see this little place called Arkham's Diner, and this kind of plays another big part in this. It says, "There are 2 worlds. There is the world that most of us inhabit. This is the world where we live our day-to-day lives. For the sake of simplicity, let's call this one the real world. But there is another world, and this other place is one that only very special people can see. Now that's not right. They don't just see this other world. These special people actually live. They fully reside in it." And you get this awesome scene of this diner where it's basically every single one of the Arkham villains in one place. You see Cobblepot, you see Two-Face, Harley, Bane, Mr. Freeze, just basically anybody you could possibly think of. They're all in this same place. Ben walks into this building and he sees the Joker, and he's kind of telling him, you shouldn't be here. And the Joker says, "Really, Doctor? Am I really the one out of place here among all these people?" And Harley kind of comes up and he brings Joker this dish and he says, "Thank you. The Doctor seems to be getting hungry." And he pulls the top of it, and it's the man's own head on this platter, plastered with the clown makeup. And Joker starts eating his brain. I think it's just all in his head. Somehow the Joker has gotten in there, alright. The artwork here is very spectacular. I really enjoy this scene where it's showing Ben's head kind of forced into different blocks as Joker's taking like a fork full of his brain out. I think Jeff Lemire has just such a good mind for different horror scenarios without being super predictable. And it's why I enjoy his work so much. And the man is just everywhere, alright? He has such a career, such a catalog of items. But eventually Ben wakes up and he's screaming. He doesn't know if this is real. He's back in wife with his bed. And he even asks her, "Is this real? Is this the real world?" And she's like, what are you talking about?" And he just brushes it off. He says, I don't know. It's time to get up anyway. And he goes downstairs to make his kid breakfast. And he actually sees his kid on his phone looking at this Mr. Smiles Interactive, and he makes him put it away. And his child says, Dad, don't you want to hear this funny joke?" And he says, "Go for it, champ. Why don't cannibals eat clowns?" "Because they taste funny." And Ben does not think this shit is funny whatsoever, alright? He tells him, "Knock it off. Don't ever say that to me again, and just go get your shoes. It's time to take you to school." And his kid kind of proceeds down to the basement stairs, down into Ben's office, and he freaks out. He doesn't want his kid to see the things that are down there. There's murder victims, there's personality traits on paper, and just a bunch of slew of like Arkham's worst crimes going on. And there's a nice little scene where he tells him, "You're such a good boy, please don't ever go down there. There are so many things down there that you don't need to see." And suddenly he is racing back to the Arkham Asylum, and it says, "There are 2 worlds." This place sits at the borderline between them. But he's back in the cell with the Joker, and this time he means business. He wants to know his origin story, and he says, "Today I would like to talk to you about your beginnings." Joker just kind of tells him which one, and he says, "Knock it off. You're always doing this, and I think it's time that you actually tell me something about yourself. And what are you so afraid of?" And Joker says, "Trust me, Benji, you don't want the truth. Not yet, anyway. Stories are so much better. They make sense of things. They comfort us." He kind of takes this, as, well, then, is this why you tell the lies? Is this what makes you comfortable? And the Joker just kind of laughs at him. And he actually starts asking about Batman. He says, "What do you think of this man? Do you fear him?" And he actually does say, he says, "Don't tell Harvey, but that man really is my soulmate," which I thought was pretty funny and obviously true. Obviously the man has some kind of conniption about Batman. And it's just cool seeing the Joker being fleshed out more as a real person with like actual good dialogue and not just being an absolute maniac the entire time. But Joker says, "Let's talk about your soulmate, Ben. Why don't you tell me the first time you slept with your wife? Give me all the details. Give me something warm to sleep at night." And Ben is like, "What? How do you?" And you see this red cloud kind of bursting above him. And then Ben also says, "Speaking of something sweet, wait, maybe we should talk about little Simon instead. And this is where Ben snaps, alright? He can't take this. He has no idea how this man even knows the names of his child or wife. And he's kind of banging on the glass door as Joker is just obviously laughing his head off. And he says, "You know the rules, Ben. No touching me unless I allow it." And this is when Director Hutchins kind of comes in and takes him out of the office. They're sitting in her room and she tells me, "No, this is the first thing we learn in Arkham. There is no touching patients. There is no handling anybody with actual force. You need to get this through your head." And Ben suddenly says, "I know. I'm just getting nowhere. I really thought I could, but I guess I just need more time. 3 weeks isn't enough. 3 weeks isn't a lot for a case as extreme as this." And Director Hutchins kind of looks at him and she's like, 3 weeks? And he says, "Yeah, I mean, it's going to take months, years even." And she starts saying, "Ben, it's already been," and then what do you know? Somebody rushes in the door and she doesn't finish her sentence for whatever reason, even though it seems very important if what she's about to say is never said. You know, that was definitely one of the more ridiculous parts of this story. Some man walks in and he says, "Clayface has escaped into the pipes," alright, and he's stuck, and she leaves. She leaves and she doesn't tell him anything. Weird. Very strange. And then from here you kind of get the good scene with Joker and some of the inmates out in the yard. But Ben goes home and he's sitting with his family and he starts talking about these two worlds again. And it says, "When I step inside Arkham, I step into the other world. I know this. And when I come home, I leave it behind. I can't allow it to bleed over. I can't allow the other world to touch this one. I cannot." And after he's done eating with his family, he has this vision, alright? He sees them also dead on the table with this Joker smile, and he starts freaking out. He needs to know how the Joker knew any of this, where did he learn that story, and what exactly is going on here. And he goes down to his basement, and both his wife and child, they're kind of trying to stop him, you know, they're saying, "This isn't a good idea, you need to take a break." And he says, "No, I need this, alright, I need this." And it starts going to these flashbacks of all these things the Joker knew that he's actually never told them. And you can kind of see him starting to see him go crazy, and he's just sitting there wondering, no, how the hell did this man know any of this information? I've never said any of this. I've only been with him for 2 weeks, and I know for a fact that I've not said any of this at all. And he gets up and he starts running outside, and he gets in his car, and both his wife and child are like, "Don't leave, it's better this way, you don't need to know." This is where things start getting very weird. Now, why would they say that? What does he not need to know? And he rushes off and he says, "I need to, I have to know every little detail." And he leaves and he gets into Arkham. He goes there late at night. He passes everybody, and once again he is confronted with the Joker. And he starts telling me, "No, how did you know any of this? I did not tell you any of this information, and I want answers right now. No more game." And he says, "Now Benji, you know that's not what happened. It's time. Let's just cut to the punchline, shall we?" And Joker says, "Now we're getting somewhere. 3 weeks, you say? Benji, dear, you have been treating me for 3 years." And that is where the first twist comes into play. And Benji is screaming. He doesn't know how this is possible. And he says, "Oh yes, and you know it's true. I know you do deep down. But that is not the best part, Benjamin." And he's just kind of crying and he's saying, "No, stop it." He can't tell what's actually real or what's not. "I know Anna and Simon's names because you have told me months ago. You told me right after Anna left you and took with your son." And things are getting insane. Benjamin finally snaps. He rushes home. He's looking around, and what do you know? It's dilapidated as fuck. I don't know how a house goes this bad in 3 months, how there's all this mold and things around it, but that's what happens, alright? He comes home, there's nobody there. All the beds are just springs now. There's nobody here. And he starts realizing, you know, that he just had dinner, but he was actually just sitting there talking to himself. He is just going insane, alright? He goes to the bathroom and he sees this Mr. Smiles book. And then the monologuing begins once again. And he says, "There are two worlds, but what happens when you no longer know which one you're in?" And eventually you come to this point where he's freaking out of the bathroom. He actually grabs this paint and he's like painting himself up like a clown. Which I have no idea why he'd actually do that, but I guess the man is going insane, alright? He has just touch madness, and it just is what it is, alright? Let's just accept that and move forward. And that is the end of book 2. And once again, we are greeted with this lovely little story. It's actually about Mr. Smiles being trapped in the magic castle, and now only the magic doctor can save him. And this is where you see Benji returning to Arkham Asylum, alright? He's going up to the front guardsman, and he's kind of asking me, why do you keep coming here so late at night? And he fucking cracks him over the head with a pipe. And this man is knocked out, obviously. He takes his keys, he runs inside, and he goes back up to the Joker, and he says, "What did you do? What did you do to me? Don't you get it, Ben? I didn't do this. They did." and he cracks Joker over the face too, alright? He knocks a couple teeth out, and Joker's bleeding out of the mouth. This man means business. And he says, okay, I'll allow that. I'll give you that one, Benji. But you know deep down that I'm not the one to blame here. I'm the one you should be thanking. And he says, Jesus Christ, the one that I should be thanking? What do you mean? You've ruined my life. You've made me turn insane. And the only reason that I can think that this even happened in the beginning of the story, when he wakes in the middle of the night and it shows this balloon popping. But it's like, how did this balloon even get into his house in the first place? It's very odd. It's very confusing. But I will just accept it as fact, just for the sake of the story. And that's basically what we're all gonna have to do here. But Joker said, what it's like to see the world this way. How it really is. Madness, Benjamin. Madness is the doorway to true freedom. And now I've given you the key. And all we have to do is walk together. And he drops his crowbar, his pipe, and he hugs the Joker, and he just starts kind of bawling his eyes out. She took your son. She left you. She could not accept who you really are, Ben, and that's why I'm here. I will never leave you. And it shows him curl up in the fetal position, like hugging Joker's lap, just bawling his eyes out. And Joker, you really actually start to think, maybe he's onto something. Maybe he's actually being nice to this guy, but that is just not the case, alright? And he gives him this address, and he starts telling him, we need to escape here. Ben lets him out, and they go to the security room, and they let every single patient out of Arkham Asylum. And it is basically, I don't know if you've never seen Natural Born Killers, but it's that kind of situation. Alright, all the criminals are out, and they're literally tearing the SWAT force apart. They're tearing the guards apart, basically just killing everybody. There's some really good scenes where you just get to see every single one of these criminals just dogpiling everybody. It's really insane. Pretty scary. Joker and Ben actually do escape, but there's one guard left, and he's pointing a gun, and Benjamin actually shoots him right in the chest. And they just both start laughing about it, him and Joker, and they're just embracing true madness, alright? Ben is no longer asking questions, and he just knows what he needs to do. Joker hands him this piece of paper with an address, and he says, this is where your family is, in our next step. Long story short, they actually both meet up at Joker's little warehouse. Joker slides on his coat, alright? He's got all of his trinkets and gadgets, and what do you know? The Batman shows up, and he starts kicking their ass. And suddenly, Joker pulls out his sleeve, and he shoots this toxic gas into Batman's face, and he's just coughing his brains out, and he tells Ben, now is your chance. Go to them and do what must be done. And Ben runs away. He's got this gun, he's got his clown makeup on, and Batman's just sitting there coughing, He's like, what did you do to this man? What have you done? And he's just beating the fuck out of Joker, just punching him, giving the old 1-2. And Joker basically tells me, you can either go save that family or you can have me. So what's it gonna be, Batman? And it always seems to be this case. Joker is kind of smart. He's always got a plan, something that Batman can't resist, something that's going to allow him to escape one last time. And Batman just tells me, no, I will find you one day. And Joker says, oh, I know. And that is some serious foreshadowing going on right there. It shows Benjamin running to his new house, alright? He does find his family. He's got a gun on his wife, and she doesn't know what the hell's going on. But he kind of tells her, this is who I've always been. And she's trying to make him realize, that the Joker has done this to him, alright? He has turned him absolutely insane, and that he is not this man. This is why she left, because he is just basically being indoctrinated into the Crown Prince of Laughing's, the whole shebang. And what do you know? Ben does come to terms, and he puts the gun down, and he starts bawling all over the floor, crying, and he realizes, the Joker has just manipulated me. He's totally tricked me, and the only thing I have left is control. And I'm just not going to do what he wants. He's not going to let him win, and he puts the gun down. And Batman's just kind of standing behind him, realizing, that thank God this man decided not to do this. And that is the end of Ben's story. It shows him back at Arkham Asylum in this cell himself. The Joker is now gone, and he's talking to Hutchins, and she's just kind of telling him, you didn't let him win. You're here, but you actually gave your family a chance to at least get away, to escape these horrifying events, and that is one thing that you could stay on. And the rest of this book is actually the sequel, Batman, the Smile Killer. And one of the best twists I've seen in a Batman comic yet, besides maybe Batman the Damned on a first read, that was actually pretty amazing. Just the concept in itself was just absolutely great. You get to see a young Bruce, and he's like watching this TV show, and you're actually seeing Mr. Smiles. And Mr. Smiles is just kind of telling him how to do these crafts, and at one point he says, I see one of you. I can see that you're very sad. And he looks right into the camera, and Bruce, as a child, he says, yes, it's me. I'm just sad all the time. And he says, well, I'm going to show you how to make your very own special friend. Everybody get a bag and get the sharpest big ol' scissors you can. and just draw your inner secret self. But no matter what, do not draw this man Mr. Pouts, which is basically just an abbreviation for this bat-like creature that is in this child's picture book that we've seen throughout this entire comic. Bruce ends up drawing this very character, and he says, you know, I can't help myself. And Mr. Smiles is very, very mad. He says, there will be punishment. You know what happens now. He basically tells Bruce to stick these scissors up and poke out his own eye. And he tells him, you know, this is gonna hurt, but you are gonna feel so much better afterwards. And as you see the kid Bruce pulling up the scissor as close to his eye, his mom runs up and she literally just slaps him right across the face. And she's like, why would you do this at all? And he says, you know, Mr. Pouts told me to do this. Flash cut into the future. It is Batman tracking down the Joker after he's recently escaped. He's with Gordon and all them, and he's kind of talking about, you know, every second that I fail, more and more of these people die. He's actually ran into this deli, and there's all these dead bodies inside of the casing, inside of the freezers, and he just realized that something is not right here, okay? Something has gone very askew. But him and Gordon are standing there, and they actually pick up this paper bag, and Batman is thrown abroad as he sees Mr. Pouts, this creature, on this bag, and he realizes, you know, what exactly is going on? Gordon asks him, you know, what is that? And he says, something I made when I was a child. And eventually Batman tracks down this old TV network that used to run Mr. Smiles. He figures this must be where he is. And that is, in fact, where he is. Joker kind of jumps out and he's stabbing him with these scissors, and he gets one more shot to spray him with this toxic gas once again. This new variation that seems to take years of people's lives without them even noticing, alright? And Batman kind of slips in out of consciousness, and suddenly he's in this orange jumpsuit across the hall from Ben, alright? He's an actual prisoner here. This is just where things get so good, okay? The Joker has now escaped. Batman is stuck in the cell and he doesn't know what's going on. And Ben says, Bruce. Batman just goes on to say, you need to think, Arnell. Joker had you. You were about to hurt your family, your wife and son. But I found you and I stopped it. You need to remember. And Ben says, you know, of course I remember. But that was 3 years ago, Bruce, and you weren't there. I didn't meet you until I became a patient here. And things are about to get so very, very trippy. One of the best parts in this, I'd say the last third of this book is by far the best. The final conclusion of this is just absolutely insane. And he says, no, there's no way. Look, there is something I need to tell you. There's just no other way, and I need you to understand. And he says, I'm the Batman. And Ben looks at him, and he says, Bruce, I know that. I mean, I know you think you are, but we've been through this a million times, Bruce. Batman is not real. You know that. And Bruce kind of starts looking around and he's like, there's no possible way. This has to be the Joker and Doctor Strange just messing with me. And I really thought that was what was going to be happening. But it just keeps on going down the rabbit hole. He says, that's just what they are trying to make us think. This is a trap. An elaborate scheme. Maybe I've been drugged or brainwashed. This might not even all be real. And Ben is getting very concerned. He's like, you know, the guards are going to show up and they're going to start to sedate us. Please, just sit down and calm down. And they do end up showing up. And Bruce kicks the absolute shit out of them when they come into his cell. But they actually take him into this office. And you see this door right here that says Dr. James Gordon, Child Psychiatry. And Bruce sees it and he's like, no. What is going on? And then it cuts back to Bruce as a child, and it's actually Gordon as the head psychiatrist of Arkham Asylum instead of being like a cop. And he's talking about Bruce about this television program and what all actually happened. How did he see this? When did he see this? And eventually it flash cuts back. It's old Gordon in this office, and it's Batman still in this jumpsuit. And he says, Jim, what's happening here? Don't you see it? We were getting somewhere, Bruce. Let's just stay focused. Mr. Smiles. Tell me about Mr. Smiles. Have you been seeing him again? He's gotten to you too. We need to find a way out, Jim. And Jim just kind of looks down in disappointment and he says, please don't do this again, Bruce. I've got somebody to show you. This always helps, and I'm sorry to do this, but it's the one thing that brings you back to reality every single time. And what do you know? Martha Wayne walks in and Bruce is like, I seen you die. How could this even be possible? And she just says, my dear boy, I'm so sorry that you're afflicted with this, but that's not what happened. What happened was your dad died. Don't you remember what happened? And it turns out that Bruce Wayne, as a child, actually shot his father to death after Mr. Smiles on the TV told him to do so. And he was basically admitted from a child as a madman, alright? As somebody with like kind of either schizophrenic tendencies or just somebody that is unable to defer realities, okay? He has multiple timelines going on in his head, and it just makes for such an interesting story, such a confusing tale of how this even happened, what this new variation of gas that the Joker is using. I don't know if it's a form from like Scarecrow, or if it's of his own concoction. It really would be interesting to see, you know, how does the Joker even know how to make any of this shit? But he does, alright? And we just kind of have to take that as fact. And he says, my mother leaves, and again I am alone. Night falls. This is my time. It should be my time. I know it was real. Joker's escape. The old TV studio. I know it was real. But why would that old soundstage still be there 30 years after the show went off? Unless, no, don't ever doubt. You know who you are. You know who you've always been. I've always been Batman. I will always be the Batman, no matter what. And he's sitting in his cell and he's screaming, Arnell, Arnell. And he's just like, I'm not sure anymore, Ben. For the first time in my life, I'm not sure what to do. And Bruce starts pounding on the walls once again, and the guards are rushing in. And what do you know? He beats the shit out of them once again. But he does escape, and he jumps out this window. Just a sliver of it, stuck in my brain, and no matter how hard I run, no matter how hard I hit, it's still there. I've never felt so lost. Not since the night I lost them. A sign. Just give me some sign and I'll know. And I thought this was really beautiful. Like, it's just such a good scene. And something that Jeff Lemire does a really good job is just kind of making you feel the fever dream itself. You know, Bruce is just so confused and he's just praying to God that none of this is actually real, that he actually wasn't the one that shot his father, that this whole Batman persona isn't been fake this entire time. And he actually sees this light up in the sky and he says, I know what I am. And you see him running towards town. And in this next panel, you see the same sky, the same building that had the light, and it's no longer there. And then it says, nowhere to begin. The end. And that is the end of the book. So utterly confusing, so awesome. And also I gotta say, underneath the dust cover, it was a very cool hardcover. I really appreciate these. I think they do such a good job at just adding little secret artwork. And, well, not secret, just good little extras. You know, this really is a pretty book. But the ending to this is so awesome, such a good little twist, something that I think we've all thought, you know, what if Batman was actually the crazy one this entire time? And this is one that touches down on that so well. And like I said, there are a lot of very confusing spots in this, things that just don't quite make sense. If you just kind of accept them as fact and just let it be, just don't think about it too hard, I think what you're gonna get here is just a fantastic Batman story, a fantastic Joker story, really. By the end of it, you just really feel the hope pulled from Batman, alright? When he first is shown in this asylum, I was like, surely in just a couple panels, he's gonna figure it out. He's gonna escape this place, he's gonna get out of this little dream world and realize that this is just gonna be one of Joker's clever schemes, alright? Another foiled plan. But it just does not get that little touch of hope in this at all. It really just seems like Batman might have been insane this entire time, that he actually was the one to create his own origin story, that the whole Batman thing is just a whole dream of psychosis, and it was just so good, alright? Jeff Lemire, you are one kick-ass man, and I'm really excited to show you guys the new Swamp Thing, Green Hell. That was also very good. It's just the first book. It is brand new. It just came out this year, and the second one will be out at the end of the month. I've already got that pre-ordered. I've actually just figured out the pre-order game of comic books. It's getting a little dangerous, you guys. This all started off with just me buying 2 comics, and now I have this whole ass stack behind here. But yes, Joker, the Killer Smile, absolutely fantastic. What will we rate this bad boy? I'm going to give this thing an 8 out of 10, alright? I think this is a really enjoyable story, a really captivating story, and like I said, there's just a lot to be wondered, you know, like how exactly, you know, if Batman's really not insane, how did the Joker pull all this off? How did he actually spray Batman with this gas and get all these attendants at Arkham Asylum to work for him? Like I said, I don't think that's the story here, alright? I think in this specific issue, it really is just Batman being insane, alright? Well, Bruce Wayne being insane. Andrea Sorrentino, hopefully I'm saying that right, her artwork in this is very, very good, very enjoyable. I really enjoyed the mini, like, little children's book inside of this. I think that could almost be its own thing, like they could make the entire book and release it for DC fans in general, for maybe teenage kids that still want to be read bedtime stories. Obviously not little children, because it's pretty terrifying, alright, with his chainsaw and all. But yes, everybody, Batman, Joker, the Killer Smile, super good. Super good. This is one of the little more expensive ones. It is around $26 on Amazon. I went to a comic book shop and I got it for $30 just to support them, one down the road that I really like. And it was totally worth my money, alright? And this is one that like I said, I've read 3 times and I enjoyed it every time over. But thank you everybody so much for watching. I went on vacation for a week and I was kind of worried about recording another video. I thought I'd be off my grind, but actually am feeling better than ever. Alright, I think it was a good break. And I do want to say, these videos, I'm going to try and hit at least every Saturday. Alright, at least one video a week. I'm going to try and do 2, but I don't want to rush the editing part of it because that is kind of crucial to making these videos watchable in the first place. So expect at least 1. But I got a bunch of these shorter ones. I got some good ideas on how to make some more snack size videos. I hope you're enjoying these. Like I always say, comment down below maybe some things you want to see. I got some awesome crossovers coming, alright? I got Batman and Spawn, I got Batman vs. Alien, Superman vs. Alien, Batman vs. Predator. I've been going crazy, alright? I've been finding all these rare little, and I think we got ourselves a bit of content to come, alright? Check all this shit out. But anyways, this video is getting too long. Thank you so much for watching. Go read this book yourself. I left out a ton. I only gave you the main plot points. But yes, have yourself a fantastic day. Like and subscribe if you did. Go find me on TikTok. Go find me on Instagram. Go find me on Twitter. And tell me your thoughts. Tell me what your local pickups have been. Alright, what's your favorite stories? For the last time, have yourself a fantastic night. Thank you again so much for watching.